So after he goes, the whole point of this is after he does that arpeggio, he goes down from the 11, 10, 9 on the A string, and even that first one, it was the theory behind the chromaticism there is he was just walking down to a target note. So that's walking down to the minor third of F. And that's walking down to the root. And then anyway, we'll get into that more later. So then he goes from he goes to the 12th fret on the E string, to the 9th fret on the E string. Then he walks up chromatically 10, 11. So, and this is where he gets into kind of a cool little thing. He goes to the 9 to the 12 on the A string, to the, and then he does an arpeggio from the 12 on the A string to the 11 on the D string, the 10 on the G string. So then he goes to the 13 on the G string, back to the 10 on the G string, and slides up to the 11 on the G string. So that whole thing is... And what that is, this kind of works perfectly with a lot of the lessons I've been getting into lately. The last one was Holdsworth. He did this on there. The next one I'm going to do is a Henderson one. And he does a lot of this in his stuff. A lot of players do. Everything I say, a lot of players do. But specifically, the last few lessons. This is basically doing melodic minor over the chord. So if you were thinking F sharp minor, that's what you would have. You'd have F sharp. Well, we won't go into all the notes. But basically, you have the 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and 8. Okay? Those are the notes of the minor scale. If you were to do major, you'd have 1, 2, major 3, 4, 5, major 6, major 7, and root. Okay? So the difference are the third, the 6th, and the 7th between those two scales. Now, what melodic minor is, it's kind of taken a little of both. It takes your minor third out of the minor scale, then it takes the major 6th, and then it takes the major 7. So it's basically more or less a major scale with a minor third. Melodic minor is, and this is where you kind of get this cool little arpeggio. It's just a cool little thing. And again, we'll go into all this theory stuff, and sometimes I stutter when I talk about this kind of stuff because the intent of this lesson isn't to get into this, so I don't want to go too far into it, so then I kind of pause and I start thinking, wait, I don't want to talk too much about this. But I just wanted to introduce you to that because it's been coming up a lot lately, and eventually we're going to do a bunch of lessons that are strictly like based on harmonic minor or melodic minor or chord changes, or instead of like teaching all the time just breaking down other players playing and their solos and stuff, because we've had a lot of requests about that too. Like a lot of beginners have asked to can you teach us some of this cool stuff but in the form of just pentatonics or beginning kind of stuff. So anyway, again, another tangent. So let's get back into this and we'll go from here. All right, and actually when he went up that arpeggio, he actually goes up here to the, goes up those three notes, the 12, 11, and 10 of the A, D, and G string, but then he doesn't continue. Then he goes back down to that 11 on the D string. So it's so after that, then he goes back down to that 11. Then he goes up to the 13 on the G string, back to the 10 on the G string, and slides up to the 11 on the G string. So that's, and this is where he goes up chromatically again on the B string from the 12, 13, and 14. So it's, and then there's a pause in between there. After those notes, there's a pause. Then he hits that 14th fret of the E string and goes down 2 notes. So it's and here he's just doing a pivot from the 14 on the E string to the 13, 12 on the B string, back to the 14 on the E string, back to the 11, 10 on the B string. So that whole thing is, and again, there's a pause in between all those. Or if I properly say it in music terms, a rest in between there. And now, if you look at what's going on here, at this point, if you're lost in the fretboard, when he gets up to here, this is all, if you think of that pentatonic scale, this is the one behind it. I'm sure you've played those notes before. And if you look at it up here, it's the same as the pentatonic with that flat 5 in there. So, and that's what that is, that flat 5 note. So if you can play it this way instead. You got, so that's just out of that shape that you already know. So anyway, so then it goes back down into this familiar position of this F minor pentatonic. Okay? And here he goes, let me see what he does. And here's where you could think of this, again, this is where he introduces that melodic minor. It's everything's out of the minor scale. So you have your minor arpeggio from the 9th fret to the 12th fret on the A string. Then on the D and G string, you have the 11th fret. On the B string, you have the 10th fret. On the E string, you have the 9 and 12 again. So you have, and that's just a minor arpeggio. Okay? So the first few notes of what he does next are straight out of that arpeggio. You have the 11 on the D and G string. Then you have the 10th fret on the B string, and you slide down to the 9th fret, which that's right out of that minor scale. If you think your pentatonic scale or your minor scale, you get that note, which is basically your 9th, okay? So here he just goes up these notes, then he slides down there, and this is where he goes back down and he introduces that major 7. So off of a minor chord, it's kind of dissonant, but that's your melodic minor. So the whole thing goes. Then on the G string, it's 11 to 10, and then on the D string, it's the 11th fret. So then he gets into another pivoting thing where he goes, and that's just the 9th fret on the G string to the 10th fret on the B string to the, he actually goes back down to the 9th fret, then he goes down to the 8th fret of the G string to the 10th fret of the B string, back down to the 10th fret. So, and again, there's a rest in there. So the whole thing is, and dynamically, there's a lot of parts like this part. He kind of gets a little lighter. And just experiment, again, with the metronome and really try and get the timing down, and then try and work in some dynamics, like get lighter, start picking heavier. Anyway, so then after that part, he goes into a straight blues kind of thing. Now, when I first started playing this, I played the next note here on the G string on the 6th fret. But for me, it was a little more comfortable to shift all the way down here to the 2nd fret of the B string. And again, look at it as one whole pentatonic scale. Okay? So after the... it's just a typical blues phrase. The 2nd fret on the B string... to the 4th fret, slide up to the 5th, back to the 4th, pull off to the 2nd on the B string. So go back down to the 4th fret of the D string. So it's and then you go to the 4th fret of the G string back to the 2nd fret of the G string. So that whole thing is. And then he slides down from the 3rd fret to the 2nd fret and pulls off to the open on the A string. And he goes down to the F sharp note on the E string, which is the 2nd fret. And that's just your sharp 5 to your 4 to your minor 3rd to your root. So the whole thing. Now he goes into a cool thing where everything was, here's that contrast thing. Everything was pretty hard 16th notes with a few rests in there. And then he gets into this 8th note thing where, and he does some, they're not weird notes actually when you look at them. It's just that you have that tritone again. So it's the 2nd fret on the low E string, the 4th fret on the A string, the 1st fret on both the D and the G string, and it goes. Then it goes down to the 3rd fret of the D string, to the 2nd fret of the G string, back to that 1st fret of the D string. So. And what's cool about that, you have the root, the 5th, the major 6th, the 9, to the major 7, to the minor 3rd, and back down to that major 6th. So that's where you get between the minor 3rd and the major 7, that's where you're getting the, and the major 6, that's where you're getting that melodic minor kind of thing. But that tritone really helps sell like an odd, first of all, it's odd timing compared to everything else that's been going on, straight 16th notes pretty much. Now you have this 8th note, and it's got like this kind of up and down kind of feel. It's kind of picked really staccato kind of like. And then he puts vibrato on that last note, but it's that tritone that really makes it even sound more separated from the rest of the tune.